I'm so excited to share this podcast with everybody. I just had a great conversation with my old friend, Kevin Koskella, the former head coach of TriSwimCoach, about how to move TriSwimCoach forward and what my expectations are of working with TriSwimCoach and what I see for the future. And it's just fun to talk to an old friend about something that we both really care about and love. I hope you guys enjoy our conversation. Let's go. Last time that you were on a podcast.
Well, with TriSwimCoach, I ended the TriSwimCoach podcast in June of 2020, and I remember exactly. I interviewed this guy Rob, and he was like a psychology kind of inner game guy, and I was drifting. My energy and my interests were kind of drifting from TriSwimCoach, and that guy. I mean, there was an overlap with triathlete, athletes and competition and what he was talking about. But it was more, I was more like, I kind of want to get into that sort of realm. And yeah, so that was it for TriSwimCoach, and I haven't appeared on any shows since then. So what is that, like 2.5, almost 3 years, I guess, or 2.5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for myself, during the pandemic, I stopped listening to podcasts, basically. I just got really tired of them.
Yeah.
Because they were all the same. We're not going
Right.
to talk about COVID, and they spent an hour talking about COVID. I was like,
Right.
whatever, I don't need to hear all that, right? So I
Yeah.
just started listening to audiobooks, which meant I stopped podcasting for Swimbox. And then I also just kind of stopped listening to them and being part of podcasts. So I haven't podcasted in a long time. It's probably about 2 years as well. So we
Yeah.
got some rust to shake off.
We're in 2024. That was
4 years.
3.5 to 4 years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, I'm getting that COVID time. It does. I don't. We won't get into COVID, but just it's a weird time period because in some ways it seemed, when you look back on it, it seems like it was a really long period of time. Like it feels like almost like 10 years, but then also at the same time it feels like that went by so fast, and like here we
Yeah.
are, like I don't know, it's a weird thing with COVID.
It is weird. I agree. How did you get involved in starting TriSwimCoach? All right, I'm very curious. Like, what led you to actually starting this thing online? Because it started back at a time that like there wasn't that much, I think, curriculum online. Maybe is a
Yeah.
good way to say it.
Right.
So, how did you come up or start doing this?
Yeah, great question. So if you go back to the beginning, when I started TriSwimCoach, it was 2003. I mean, we're talking 21 years ago. I was working in Silicon Valley at high tech companies, and at the time I thought that was going to be my career. I was going to be in like sales and marketing, and I was doing account management at the time for this company. And then they had this big layoff, and I got axed. And right away, I was throwing my resume around trying to get another job, and I had all these interviews, and I was going on interviews for corporate, jobs. And every single time I would do an interview, I'm like, oh, I do not want to do this at all. Like 0% of me wanted to stay in the corporate world, even though that's where I could make money. And, I was living in a really expensive area and I needed the money. But everything about internally, I was like, no, 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 don't want this. And because I had that feeling, I took a job as a master swim coach at the Y that was right down the YMCA that was right down the street. And I had never coached in my life. I competed in swimming. I never did any coaching at all. Not even like, I really never gave many swim lessons other than just some volunteer stuff. But other than that, I was not a coach. I was not a teacher. But I was like, I want to try this. It's a small masters team, and they needed a coach, and so I just took over. And I was getting paid peanuts, of course, because it's masters swimming. There's no money in it.
Right.
And but so I started enjoying the whole thing. Like I was designing the workouts and meeting a lot of really cool people, and it was just like a really fun job. I mean, I would bike down there, and I just felt like it was so much fun. And I wanted to, and a lot of the people that were in my group, my master's group, were triathletes, and I wanted to teach them proper swimming because I could see that people were like, they were swimming workouts. They were able to swim a master's workout, but their stroke technique was pretty bad, and I was like, well, they don't really need to they don't need to work on getting faster. Just didn't make any sense to me that they were like, we need to do all, do these workouts, but do them with improper freestyle. So I started teaching them, like every time I would coach, I would go in and teach them something about freestyle. And it was something that I started getting really excited about. So I'm like, oh, like I'm watching them get better at their stroke. And it got to the point where I was kind of obsessed with the stroke technique. And they started telling me, Kevin, we need to be training a little bit, not just working on technique. So I had to sort of figure out a way to blend, like a workout with technique. And so then I started researching online, like, is anybody teaching like freestyle for triathlon? And at the time, I did lots of research, and the only one I could find was Total Immersion. They were teaching freestyle for triathlon. And also they taught other strokes and they taught other, like freestyle for whatever, but they did have a specific freestyle for triathlon. And I read the book, I got their book, I got their course. I went to, they just happened to be doing a course, a live course in my city. And I went to it and I was like, okay, this makes total sense. Like this sort of method of teaching makes total sense. And so I incorporated that into what I already knew about freestyle. And I was using some of their techniques. And then, that long story short, I eventually was like, well, could I do something around this topic? And my answer was yes, because I was like, I'm going to start teaching lessons, just teaching people, freestyle for triathlon and just freestyle in general. Not I wasn't focused at the beginning just on triathlon. But anyway, I started doing swim lessons, and I was teaching swim lessons at the Y, and then also I started my own kind of thing where I was like on the side teaching lessons, and then I started doing clinics, and it was all live. And then I built a website that was sort of advertising my lesson and clinic business. And so I started getting people, and then I networked with all these people in triathlon, and then I eventually got clients in the triathlon world. And after some time went by, I decided to see if I could, design like a PDF or something that they could go use for training, and like just like a 12-week plan or something like that. And people were loving it. I mean, I hardly had any traffic to my website, but people were like, "Oh, this is great. We need workouts," and that was the main thing. We need workouts, and so I just so I started putting together a workout plan for triathlon, and then I'm like, "Oh, I could sell this." And I just like randomly put up a PDF on the side. I had no idea what I was doing technically. I just like I put it up there. I put a PayPal link to buy, and it was like $15. And I got a few sales, and I was like, wow, there's people out there that need this. And so then it just went on from there. And then I grew it from this one PDF to creating an ebook, and then creating a DVD, and then eventually we had a membership site.
Okay. It's really interesting to me is that how small the swimming world is, because I had the opportunity and pleasure to know Terry Laughlin, who created Total Immersion.
Yeah.
And in the last, I think it's been the last 5 years or so. So basically, Terry used to be the swim coach for West Point, right? And so the former tri coach for West Point, who also worked with Terry, is now the tri coach for Columbia University. He just happens to be my client, and I also work with him with Columbia University. Nice. All right, so it's this like really small swimming world, and we all are somewhat connected, whether we know it or not.
Oh yeah.
We've known each other since about 2016, I think, maybe 2017-ish, but I think it's 2016.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting how all these pieces just kind of like fit in and come together. And what I really find interesting is I started coaching right out of school, and that's all I wanted to do, really. Yeah. Basically, I felt like I could have gotten better technique advice from my coaches because they didn't quite understand that, I guess, mentality, right? Training is more important than technique in a lot of coaches' minds. And so I really wanted to try to make sure anyone who wanted to swim could swim, no matter what. Injuries, no injuries, never swam before, swam their whole life, right? Whatever it is, right? And I never could wrap my mind around how I could help people that weren't directly in front of me.
Hmm.
And so this is actually really like fascinating to me to hear how you were putting it out there, just trying to help whoever wanted the help. And
Hmm.
I was a little bit more like focused and like, this is person is in front of me. This is the person that I'm coaching.
Yeah.
So now this is a really great experience to be able to. I think my mind is now opened up a little bit differently, and so I feel more confident coaching people across the world. Um, and it's interesting how this all evolved. Is there anything that you find like uh, it evolved from TriSwimCoach that you didn't quite expect, or things that like you were shocked by?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much learning along the way. There was. I mean, I think that what I did early on, that what I noticed early on in the swim coaching world, is that, like you said, it's all kind of connected, and a lot of coaches are very territorial. So they have
Yeah.
their thing, their space, they have their clients, and they kind of have this thing where it's like, no, this is, I invented this, and nobody invented any of this. I mean, we're all borrowing from people before us. There's no, I mean, when we put things together, we have some originality to it, but it's not like, you could go back to different coaches in history, and I won't bore the audience by nerding out on the swim history,
Yeah.
but everybody took from someone else, just like the whole Led Zeppelin thing. Like I always say that it's like
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin took from other music as well, even though a lot of things go back to Led Zeppelin. So anyway, yeah, I early on I was like, I'm going to be humble about this, as far as like, I don't want to be the guy that has all the answers and has, this is the Kevin Koskella way and the TriSwimCoach way, and that's it. There's no like bending or being flexible. So I sort of took on this attitude of like, I'm just going to learn from everybody else, because I was a new coach when I got started with all this, and I wanted to learn from everybody else. I didn't want to be like, I know everything because I swam at Division 2 and I made nationals. Like, no, I know nothing. Like, even if I was an Olympian, I still really wouldn't have known that much. I mean, it wouldn't. It's
Right.
because there's so much more to coaching than there is to swimming fast. So I just, that was the thing that I just went on this learning quest throughout the next, until, like the end. I mean, I really just wanted to learn as much as I could. So a lot of it was like, some of it was learning about running a business online, and then running a swim coaching business online, which is interesting because, like you said, like, most people think, well, you have to be there, right? I mean, but
Right.
there's ways to help people through videos. And even when I started, I didn't really do videos. It was just mostly written communication and pictures. So
Yeah.
there are ways, and just being open to all of it. And when I got criticism, especially early on, it was hard. It was like, there were people that were like, what are you talking about? That's wrong. And I'm like, and who are you to say this? And I had to take it, set the ego aside and be like, hey, what is this person saying? There's probably some truth to this. And so, like, I think it allowed me, especially the first few years, it kind of forced me to be more open to learning, and not so much stuck on one path to, this is the right way and there's no other way to be. Because early on I was sort of more influenced by Terry Laughlin and his methods. And then as I grew more, I was like, oh, this sort of works, but then there's other things that can help with this, and there's other things that can work, and it's not the end all be all. It's not, this is the way. And so I started, even my message changed a little bit, and I think I did a podcast where I was like, okay, I was wrong about this. I was saying this, like, early on. I was like, when you're doing freestyle, you need the glide. And, I think Terry Laughlin talked about this, and I grew up with the
Mhm.
glide. Oh, we got a glide. And then I read this whole thing about how, oh, you're gliding, you're actually slowing down. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So I changed it. I updated my book, and I, changed all this stuff. So that's mainly what everything was not what I expected, really, because I was like learning as I went. And then when we connected, your teaching was different than mine. And
Yeah.
I heard about you through one of my customers, who was like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm this, he was giving me a report on how he's been able to go from like a really basic level swimmer, beginner level swimmer, to like killing his old times, and like, easily getting through the swim in his races, and he's like, "Oh, I owe it to Coach Dominic," and I'm like, "Who's this guy?" And I'm like, I gotta find this guy and I gotta talk to him because his methods obviously work. So if I was like ego, centric and was like, no,
Yeah.
screw this guy, who is he? I don't know anything about
I'm
him.
the only right one.
Yeah, I have the way. So then I was able to learn a lot from you, and we did a lot together, and I think that was
We did.
another elevation to TriSwimCoach for sure.
Yeah, and actually, you don't know this because you haven't been able to visit us in Arlington, Virginia, at Swimbox. But there's actually a picture that we took at one of the clinics that we hosted in Irvine, and
Oh
you're
yeah,
on the pool deck right next to me. So you're
nice.
actually there. You're
Nice.
in Swimbox. It's actually kind of fun.
Oh, awesome.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think to your point, everything in the swimming world changes, right?
Mhm.
Rules change in competitive swimming, but then also the ability to measure things change in swimming, meaning it's very difficult to measure speed and velocity, momentum in the water, right? You need specific tools to do that. And now with technology improving to measure those things, swimming has more accessibility to science.
Mhm.
And with that science, things should change, right? We
Yeah.
shouldn't be coaching the same thing that we coached in 2001. We just
Right.
shouldn't be.
Right.
It's like trying to convince someone that the way they were running in the 80s is better than the way that they're running now,
Yeah.
right? Well, we know that that's not true. So I think any coach who comes to a pool deck or a swimmer or an athlete and says, "This is how I was taught, so therefore this is how you're going to swim,"
Mhm.
is already off to a bad start, right?
Right.
Because how I swam is not how I expect anyone else to swim.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to always just remind athletes and ourselves that there is no such thing as a perfect stroke. There's
Right.
just not. There's perfect sort of concepts that we prefer, but
Mhm.
our preferences don't matter. And I think um, one of the things that you did really well, shout out to Andy, the person you were just talking about,
Mhm.
you know, is that you put the athlete first. And I
Mhm.
think that has always been my job. As a coach is to always put the athlete first, not my ego, certainly not my ego. But from the very beginning of my coaching career, I was always adjunct to tri coaches, right? I
Mhm.
was always the swim coach for the tri team.
Yeah.
And I always recognize that, and I'm very comfortable in that position. So I don't ever try to put an athlete in a position where they feel like they have to choose a coach. It's always,
Yeah.
you're the priority, you're my focus. And if I'm asking that athlete to do something they can't do or won't do, then I back off, right?
Right.
So it's just a good mentality to have. And I would you say that is your coaching philosophy, to kind of just let everything be a learning experience for yourself, or is there a different philosophy for you coaching wise?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, partly, like what I was just talking about, as far as learning goes. But then it's also like on the granular kind of micro level where every lesson that you give, you're going to be learning something. It's like every single time. I think you're improving as a coach, and you're learning. And if you're not, I think you're missing out, because I think then it's sort of a cookie cutter approach where it's like, okay, this is what we do for everybody. But it's like even just I mean, everyone's going to have a different stroke and different come to you at a different level, and also they're going to come to you at it's two things. I mean, one is the different level of stroke technique, and then another is like the different level of how much they've competed, how much they've trained, how fit they are, and it's like you kind of have to adapt to that. And I think early on I was learning to adapt because I was taking on any swim lesson. I was just doing adult swim lessons, and I was taking on
Mm-hmm.
any adult swim lesson. I was like, anyone that wants swim lessons, I'm open to teaching. And so I had everything from like adult learn to swim. Like they never even they never got in the pool until they met me, and then we started doing. And I felt like that was where I learned so much, because they knew nothing, and they didn't know how to breathe, and we had to go back to start with blowing bubbles, and like this actually worked, like to actually help them understand it. Because I remember, actually, as I'm talking about this, I remember there was a guy that came to me. He said he had a scuba diving trip that he planned, but he had no idea. He never had swam in his life. he's like, and he would drown if he did this. And I remember I was like, hey, I had never taught someone like this, but he trusted me. He's like, yeah, you're the guy. So, okay. So I started doing like the basics and, understanding that okay, first of all, he didn't know how to breathe at all. Like there was no ability. So we did do some blowing bubbles. Luckily, he didn't have this huge ego. He was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever it takes. And then he had this thing that I did learn about before that, some people get, where when their head is down in the water and they're looking at the deep water, their brain is thinking you're going to fall. Like your brain connects this deep water to, oh shit, I'm gonna get hurt. So they panic and they get up. And he was doing that. He was like, we were in a shallow pool that it had a drop off, and he would be fine in the shallow, and then we get in the deep, and he'd be like, and he'd jump up and try to get his breath. And I'm like, wait, like let's, and we had to ease into that. We had to go, okay, a little bit more. And that was like one of those things where it's like, unless you are out there teaching people in real life, it's hard. You wouldn't know that. And that's still, even triathletes have this. It's not like just learn to swim adults have this, or learn to swim kids. It's triathletes that have been swimming for a while sometimes have this. And unfortunately, one of the sad things that was happening in the last few years I was doing this is that people were having heart attacks in the beginning of the swim. And I think this does come to, and this gets into your teaching very well, because I think people do have this, there's some people that have this tendency to panic, and then it triggers something. And if something's going on with your heart, that can be deadly. So anyway, that was a long way to get to that.
Yeah, I think it's all pertinent. And actually very recently, within like 2 weeks ago, Triathlon Magazine, someone had just written an article about how triathletes are learning how to swim incorrectly because they're not taking a approach where they're actually learning all the fundamentals, including survival fundamentals, and they're just going to a pool and swimming laps. And I see it every single day. I see every day a triathlete who I ask to slow down in the lesson while they're swimming, and they just simply can't. And it comes down to, if I slow down, I think I'm going to sink.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I've met started doing triathlon because they were so bad at swimming, and they wanted something to encourage them to swim. And so they tried to conquer fear with this, which I think is great, but they've almost done it in like a half measure instead of the full measure. So I think all that is very true. And really important to keep in mind that it isn't just about getting the fastest time. That, I would say, for most people in triathlon, that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about conquering sort of fears and checking off goals and motivating yourself. And I think for Ironman, I think the average is every Ironman, at least one person dies. I think that's what it is. And it's mostly during the swim.
Yeah.
It's either that or the bike usually. So, we don't want that to ever happen. People don't get into this sport to have a short life. They do it to improve their quality of life.
Right.
So, trying to be thorough, I think, in the learning process, in being okay with starting at square one, even if you think you know more than square one. Start at square one, because once you run into your bottleneck, it might be breathing. It might be just rolling over to your back that's hard for you.
Yeah.
But once you kind of run into that bottleneck, that's what you need to work on and focus on.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of like insights on swimming training for different levels? Like if someone was like, don't know how to swim, they came across this podcast, what would be your advice for them? What would be your advice for someone who's been swimming a little bit? Someone who's done a couple of triathlons and can swim pretty well, and someone who might be like, I don't know, a couple of years into triathlon and swims what I would define as, I'm comfortable with my swim. I don't need to work on it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So for the beginners, the tricky thing is, at least when I was running my swim lesson business early on, a lot of people came to me and they had learned to swim at the Y. That was their. A lot of people that grew up in the U.S. I believe that's where the very first time I took swim lessons, I think it was at the Y, or maybe the second time, I can't remember. But and they have the YMCA has their methodology, and it goes against a lot of the things that you and I both have taught in swimming. So people learn to swim wrong, and that was the thing with learn to swim people that have never swum before. I think you really have to find a quality instructor, and it's not just going to come by going to your local. I'm not slamming the Y. I love the YMCA. It's not like, I don't have any problem with it, but it's just their teaching method is going to be, you probably remember the same thing, like, using your arms, using your legs, and yes, you can get off the ground, and they teach you the blowing bubbles and all that, but you're going to learn to swim using a ton of your energy just to get across the pool. And so, because we have advanced a lot since the early days of teaching swimming that way, I think it's important to find a coach. I mean, that has a deeper understanding of how to swim. And I think I would just say, like, go for an instructor and do one-on-one. Don't do group classes or any of that, because it's much harder to learn when everyone's at a different level and they're trying to teach you the basics, but they don't know your level. So I think just getting one-on-one instruction early on, if you're new to it. And I don't know, you probably have more resources than I do. I mean, unless they're in your area, like, you probably know a lot more people at this point, or have a better idea of how to do that. But yeah, and then as far as like the next level, like someone that's adequate, they can swim, maybe they can even do like 500 yards without stopping, but they're not really, going very fast. I think then it's important to teach the level of, like, how do you conserve energy when you swim? Like, what is like, how is it that you're going to get through any level of race, even if it's 200 meters or something, without like just blowing all your energy? Like, so that, I think that's kind of the early stage thing, and not focusing at all on speed. Like, forget about speed altogether. Just conserve energy, and then, as you start to progress, and getting in the water like 3 days a week minimum, that kind of thing, so that you're, the more, it's better. I think at that stage, it's better to be getting in the water more often for shorter times than it is to try to do a lot in every time you get in the water. So that's something that I would tell people a lot is, just the exposure to water. I mean, it's helping you get your body adjusted to being in water. And even just that, even if you just jump in and jump out, like, that's better than trying to do too much early on. And I think the first thing that's important is to get an instructor, do one-on-one lessons, and find somebody that knows swimming deeply. Because my experience is, a lot of people learn swimming at the YMCA, and nothing against the YMCA, but they have their kind of structured swim programs. And at least when I was a kid, it was just like, you learn some fundamentals like blowing bubbles, and that's helpful. But then there's like the arms, using your arms, using your legs, and you end up with this stroke where you're just kind of powering through the water. And like you said, like, then it feels like you're just trying to go faster just to stay on top of the water and not sink. So that's kind of usually what I see is people coming to me with either that sort of background, or or if they're starting from zero, then I would just recommend finding somebody that's good. And it's just like anything else. It's usually, you're kind of going to get what you pay for. It's not going to be really cheap to do lessons with somebody that knows what they're doing. But if you can find somebody in your local area, now, Dominic, you probably have some resources for that if they're not nearby. But I was trying to, when I was running TriSwimCoach, I created a directory. It's completely outdated now, but but of coaches that were like master's level swim coaches that had some level of experience teaching adults and coaching adults and things like that. So I think that's important at the beginning. And then the next level is like where they know how to swim. They can probably do like 500 yards or something like that, without stopping. Then it's a matter of refining your stroke techniques. That takes years. I mean, a lot of times I would go and swim laps at different lap pools, and usually when I do that, not to be arrogant or anything, but I'm usually the best swimmer in those lap pools. So just randomly, I go to lap pool, and then people are like, I sometimes would get a comment like, I'd stop on the wall, and someone would be like, "Wow, you're swimming so fast, and your stroke is amazing." And I'm like, okay, I've been doing this my entire life. I started swimming when I was 8 years old, competitively, and I've done it my entire life. And they want to like sort of go, oh yeah, I suck, and my stroke is terrible, and I'm slow, and these old ladies are passing me up, and all this stuff. And I'm like, don't compare yourself to anybody. It doesn't make any sense to compare yourself. So go in with the idea of this is the stage where you want to get in the water as frequently as you can, so your body is used to getting, being in that submersed environment, and do what you can. Don't think you have to do these huge workouts in that stage. Just uh, focus mostly on stroke technique, and then if you can get some laps in, that's great. But it's more about getting to the pool, as frequently as you can at the beginning, and then you can start later going to some schedule where it's like 3 days a week or something. Um, but yeah, that's what I would say at that level. And always be learning, always be, however you learn best, just keep doing that. Whether it's one-on-one lessons or videos, or whatever it is. And then you get to a point where you're in sort of a routine where you're going like 3 days a week, and you can do a workout, you can complete a workout. Then you can start thinking about speed, and how are you going to get faster, taking this stroke that you built up for a while. For everyone it's going to be different, but you could be working your stroke for 6 months, a year, and then start to add in the speed elements. And that's where you can think about, like, okay, am I going fast in the workouts? Because I mean, there's so many topics here, but that's another question I
Yeah.
used to get, or another controversial topic is, I'd read these articles online by coaches saying, like, you have to swim fast to go fast. I remember this whole thing about like how some coaches say that you never have to swim fast, but that's bullshit because you have to. And I'm like, they're all missing it, because it's like, what level are you? Who are you talking to? There is a level where it would be ridiculous for you to try to swim fast. And there's another level where if you're not swimming fast, you are not going to go very fast in your race. So, it's all just depending on your level. And yeah, so then I would just ease up to that point of like, okay, now maybe you're at more of an intermediate, maybe advanced intermediate level, and you can start throwing in like sprints in your workouts. And you don't need to do a lot of sprints, but sprints are great. And one thing I've noticed about swimming like through the years, and getting older and not swimming nearly as much as I used to, and this kind of thing, is that the shifting gear starts to go away. Because when I swim, I don't really do much swimming these days, but like in the past few years when I've done swimming as an exercise, I'm mostly just getting in swimming laps. I'm not doing sprints. Like, I don't really care about going fast. But if I do want to try to shift gears and get in that faster gear, it's not there anymore. It's like I'd have to train that to get back to it.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so to answer your question, if anyone's in the DMV area, DC area, well, I have a swim school there, and we do 90% of our business is teaching people to learn how to swim. And then the others are basically triathletes and competitive swimmers. So
Mhm.
I think adults wanting to learn how to swim, or just improve their swimming because they don't feel very confident in their swimming, is a huge population of people that they're all embarrassed to admit. And
Mhm.
I see it fairly frequently where someone feels almost like shame that they don't swim as well as they think they should, or maybe don't know how to swim at all, because they have been shamed. And a lot of the times they get shamed by people who also have pretty bad swimming skills. Because
Yeah.
in my mind, it's kind of like, I'll share this anecdote. When I was in college, I was 6'1" and probably weighed like 155 pounds, and as a freshman. And I remember going to the gym and feeling intimidated by going to the gym because I was surrounded by people that were clearly had been lifting for a very long time. And somebody at the gym, had just mentioned to me that the fact that I was there putting in the work is
Mhm.
what's impressive, not
Yeah.
how much weight somebody could lift,
Right.
right? And I think that's the same sort of sentiment that everyone should keep in mind, is that we don't care how fast of a swimmer you are. We don't care how long you can swim. The
Mhm.
fact that you're trying to do something that, as an adult, that is very difficult to do and learn how to do is impressive in itself. So go to the pool and practice. There's no shame in that. Nobody swimming at that pool is perfect. Not even if Kevin shows up with his beautiful perfect stroke,
No, it's
still
not at
not
all.
perfect.
It's way far from
Right?
perfect these days. Yeah, but
And so
yeah, like,
that's
I was going to say, like, men, I'm sure you've had the same thing. Like, men are much more likely, like what you just described, than women. It's very interesting, uh, because like you, I coached. I had so many lessons, and you start to see the patterns. And it's like the guys that came to me were harder to teach because of this thing of, like, kind of stuck in, like, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed that I can't do this, and the women are like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And there's not as much of an ego attached to it. So it's very interesting. I mean,
right.
of course, it's not across the board. I mean, I had some competitive women that were like some of my hardest clients that I had, but yeah, for the most part, that's it.
This podcast was intended for almost to pass the torch, right? To say, um, this is where TriSwimCoach was, and this is what we're doing now with TriSwimCoach. Um,
Hmm.
and so, any guidance or thoughts that you want to share with me as I'm going to start taking over this endeavor and sort of become the head coach of TriSwimCoach? Any thoughts or anything you want to share with me?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think, first of all, of all the coaches that I've worked with and come across, I think, to me, you're the best possible person to pass the torch to, like, by far. So I think that is, I think you're in a great position because of your background and your level of dedication to the sport of swimming and your work. And, I think it's a great fit overall. And so, you know, at this point, as far as, like, guidance goes, I would say that, for the one of the things we talked about today was about learning, and just continuing to be in that mode of learning, and I know always being open to, people on the internet will tell you all kinds of crazy things, but sometimes people on the internet have points, and it's like, oh yeah, okay. And so I think that keeping up on all the latest, everything, I think it makes great sense. Also, being engaged with the athletes. Like, I used to go to events and talk to people in person, and I think that helped. I think that helps a lot because, knowing what people are kind of saying out there, whether it's cliche stuff or, just the struggles that people have. I think that's important. And then focusing, kind of, I'd say 80-20, like 80% of the audience is going to be beginner level ish. Maybe in that beginner level, they might be anywhere from just starting to, sort of more advanced beginner. But that's the majority of people. And when you read the comments on Facebook, because that's what I had, the Facebook page, that was the big thing. And when you read the comments, it's not always coming from the audience that is the biggest part of your audience. It's coming from the tiny fringe, what is it, like the fringe minority that are, like,
Right.
screaming at you about something, or they're just like, maybe they're talking about placing in their age group, but actually most people have no interest in that, and it's not even in the realm of possibility. So it's like, yeah, kind of paying attention to that, like what sort of, what you're sort of listening to, and and then continuing to do the one-on-one lessons and the clinics and that kind of thing, because being out there and being with people. But I mean, you have no problem with that because you've got a actual facility, and that's how you're making a living and everything. So obviously that's not a huge thing, but you get clients from all across the board. So the triathletes are a unique breed in a lot of ways, and so they're going to present unique problems. So kind of going with that, and yeah, I mean, that's really it. I mean, I think, it's just like your knowledge is you've already got the knowledge, and then just keeping up with the new stuff and continuing to learn, I think, is really all you need to do. And yeah, I can't really think of anything else. I mean, I did this for
Perfect.
15 years, more or less, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so, I think it's a great time for you to step in and take it to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, I've already got the beard. so we're good
That's
there.
right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think one of the things that is really important to me moving forward is the community aspect of it.
Hmm.
And so we're working on creating a new platform for community and curriculum to be held in the same place so people can talk about the curriculum together,
Yeah.
and also talk about it with me on the same platform. Um, I With that platform, we'll be able to sort of like take polls and see what
Yeah.
races people are going to. And then if we see that there's going to be a lot of people going to a specific race, we'll go to that race and say hi to everybody and, participate in hanging out in some way.
Yeah.
And then the other really important thing is to me doing camps, finding opportunity to do camps across the United States and a couple of different locations in the world so that all of us can commune in one place and not just share our connection online, but share our connection in person as well.
Yeah.
Those are the most important things to me. I think online communities are important because they bring people together from across the world. But there's a component of being in person that I personally really like and miss from most online communities.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm going to be really focused is trying to create opportunity to interact with people in person, and hopefully in lots of different ways online as well. So I'm excited for that part of it, actually. Um, Before we wrap things up, just curious, where do your passions and focus lie now? Since Try Some Coaches, you're going to still kind of be like, at least based off of what we've talked about, you'll be on the platform. So if people want to reach out to you, they can message you or direct message you there.
Yeah.
And you'll kind of like be there, hanging out, answering questions or whatever, and just doing what Kevin does. But where's your focus or passion lie right now?
Yeah, I love this question. So one thing is, since we started talking, I don't know when that was, a few months ago, again about
Yeah.
kind of transitioning TriSwimCoach, uh, I've noticed that I am really interested in this. Like, I really want to see it succeed, and it's not even it's just like a subject that I am interested in and I am excited about. It's just over the last couple of years, probably the last 2 years, my interests were drifting towards just running a business, like a different kind of business. And so that's what really brought me out of it, because I really wanted to experience what it's like to start a business kind of from scratch and build it up to some level of like where I can earn a living on this business. And so I've been able to do that, and that's taken a few years, but I've been able to start a business online and nothing to do with swimming or training or any of this stuff. And so that has been my main focus the last few years. And but now it's kind of like I mean, I'm still into that. I'm still, my full time thing is running it's a WordPress support business, and that's my full time thing. But I have a extreme interest in health, like number one, health, because as I'm getting older, I'm seeing that I have different needs. Like 10 years ago, I was probably pretty, interested in building muscle, and, um, even performance was an interest of mine. Now that is not at all. It's not, I want to be fit, but it's more about, this, the way to describe it is like aging gracefully, like, what does that take? Like, that's another game. That's a completely different game. It's not the same as, being a young guy trying to, attract the chicks and all that. It's a totally different game. It's like I want to feel good. I want to have every day have as much energy as I can, and I want to have a long life and a long healthy life. And so that's sort of been my interest, outside the business realm. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to contribute in any way possible with TriSwimCoach, except for running the whole thing. but but uh, but any sort of like with health and fitness, aging, and the swim technique and stuff. I still love talking about that stuff. Yeah, I would love to contribute there. But otherwise, yeah, I'm focused on my own health, my own, sort of like keeping myself as young and as fit as possible, and avoiding the major catastrophes and the big things, and then running my business and sort of building that, and then getting into some other types of businesses, I think, in the future as well.
Yeah. Speaking of your health, and actually, I just remembered we'll have to do another podcast because I think it was in 2019. Maybe it wasn't 2019. Maybe it was 2021. I don't remember. But you had told me that you were going to get uh, intravenous stem cells, and I
Yeah.
was so curious about how that went. I really wanted to sit down and do a podcast with you when it happened,
Yeah.
because that's something that I'm infinitely curious about as well. And so I would
Hmm.
love to sit down and talk about that experience, and if you would do it again. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll find a time
Sure. Yeah. I'd
to
love
talk
to
about
talk
that
about that.
podcast on a
And
different
I have
podcast.
a lot to say about shoulders. So I like, cause I have all the shoulder problems in the world because I did swimming for so many years. My body didn't react well. I actually had bad technique when I was younger. And then I played volleyball when I was older and messed up the other shoulder. So I had bad swimming shoulder, bad volleyball shoulder. So, and I'm still working on that. It's still a work in progress. So
Yeah, well, I had bad swimming shoulders. They've been fixed
yeah.
through, unfortunately, surgery first. But that's why I started to do what I do, is because I didn't need that surgery, and it could have been fixed through technique. And I have
Right.
since fixed it through technique.
Yeah.
My surgery
That's awesome.
personally can, uh, I could re-injure myself very easily. It's like a
Hmm.
temporary fix, right? So I have to change my movement, or I would re-injure myself. So I had to figure that out, and so
Yep.
that's where I'm at because of this, right? All my coaching comes from this concept that people should be able to move if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me.
Awesome.
All right, let's wrap this up. This will be interesting to edit since we've had some issues in the filming of it or the recording of it. So we'll see how this goes, and then we'll just take it from there. Any last sort of thoughts that you want to end with before we end this podcast?
No, just want to say, like, you guys are listening. You're in great hands with Dominic. Like, definitely better than what I was able to do. I think this next phase of TriSwimCoach is going to be really awesome, a lot of fun, and I think you're going to see that this is the way to go. Like, if you're in triathlon, there is no other place that you want to go for swimming, like guidance, swim coaching, learning all that. I think it's going to be here at TriSwimCoach. So yeah, just stay tuned.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, we will talk again. All
Yeah.
right,
Thanks, Dominic. Yeah. Great being
you're
on the
welcome.
show, and good luck with everything.
Thanks. We'll be in touch.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
All right.